of an exciting qualifier. The gauntlet is getting tougher as the best teams in the world are trying to get the final 4 golden tickets. Who is still alive in the gauntlet? Did your favorite team get eliminated? Find out now on this week's episode of 3 Stars. Howdy Chiefs, I'm Woody, and I'm privileged to be your host today alongside iTzu, who rejoins us for the 3rd episode. iTzu, welcome back. How are you doing, sir?
Thank you, Woody. I'm feeling amazing as we're getting closer and closer to the main event of this year, live in Helsinki. We have already 4 golden ticket holders, which already qualified for this main event. But 4 more golden tickets are on the line. After stage 3 of the qualifiers, we are down to 8 teams which are trying to fight for those last 4 golden tickets. I cannot wait to see who's going to make that. But Woody, what is up for today's episode?
Well, with stage 3 down, we're going to recap it a bit and talk about which teams made it through, our favorite teams that were competing in it, and a look at our personal favorite match with a breakdown of the best attack. We'll also look ahead for stage 4 and the World Championship. We're heading back to double elimination, so let's see how the best teams in the world will adjust. Lastly, we'll get to know the 3rd team to qualify, Tribe Gaming. Who are they? How did they qualify? And what can we expect from them in the finals? But that's enough for me. iTzu, let's get right into it.
Thank you, Woody. Stage 3 is over and we had incredible matchups. But let's take a look at the format which we had in this stage 3. We had a Swiss system, which means as soon as you were able to win 3 of your matches, you would get to the next stage. But if you would lose 3 matches, you are out of the competition. So overall, with this being broadcasted, all of the eyes were on the players. A lot of pressure was on the line, but 8 teams made it. Woody, what was your favorite team out of the teams which made it?
Well, that's a really easy question, iTzu, because with this Swiss format, there were 5 total rounds to get 3 wins. There were only 2 teams that could possibly go undefeated and get those 3 victories in the first 3 rounds. And one of them was Space Station Gaming. This team was not only ranked 1st in Stage 1 with an undefeated record, also going 3-0 undefeated in Stage 2. They are a team that is experienced on stage and is paired with a renowned organization. They've gone through multiple wars in a live environment and have performed so consistently in our Championship Qualifiers. I think that Space Station Gaming are all but guaranteed to get that golden ticket if they can just make it a little bit further in Stage 4. But iTzu, what was a standout team for you?
I mean, first of all, I have to say I completely agree with you on Space Station. Their statistics are looking incredible, offense, defense. I think they just have it all. But I think when we're coming down to the fan favorites, I feel like that's an important thing as well. The fan favorites, I think, in my opinion, are still Queen Walker's Stephanie. The team is just loved by everyone. They are known for their creative attacks, and as a really cool fact, they're already in the competitive community for a long time. They were a part of the Clash of Clans Worlds Finals events now for the last couple of years, and that's already a really, really huge accomplishment. So I cannot wait for them to maybe show up and maybe knock Space Station from this first seed when it's coming down to the statistics. But what would be your Dark Horse team in all of the remaining teams, Woody?
That's a great question, iTzu, and I would certainly agree with you that Queen Walkers are another top contender, but since they were defeated by Space Station Gaming, I would say that they are among the top 2 with a chance to get a golden ticket. But if we're looking at the teams with maybe a little bit of a lesser chance, but also potentially underestimated, dark horse candidates, if you will, I would say that Repotted Gaming fits the bill. This is a squad that, if you only saw them in Stage 3, you might think that they're underdogs. In fact, they advanced with a 3-2 record to make it onto Stage 4, kind of the bottom of the barrel, passing the buck onwards. But we're going to see that if you look back into their history from Stage 1 and 2, they were at the very top, undefeated, unsurpassed by any other squads. And I think that they can really leverage this experience in Stage 3, still moving on, even if just barely, and combine it with their history as a competitive clan among a really strong community, pulling in lots of wins through plenty of online events to push forward in this last chance in Stage 4 to get that golden ticket. But if I had to turn it back to you, iTzu, who is your favorite pick for a Dark Horse team?
Yes, you are right, Woody. I completely agree with that pick with Reported. But I feel like what I would throw in as well is Inquisition. So for me, they're a really good example of being a dark horse team because they are already in the competitive scene for quite some time. Back then, where they already played in the competitive scene, there was no 5v5 existing. There were 50 versus 50 matches, so there's already a long history with them being in this community, but it's more like a clan family existence for them, where they're playing in a bigger size matches most of the time. So for them, getting a team that far in this competition, I feel like is a really cool thing, and I really hope that they can make it further. But Woody, what are the teams you enjoyed watching the most over this last weekend?
As far as the personal picks go, I've got my eye on Blind Esports. This is a squad that turned up 19th in Stage 1, so very solid performance, advancing through Stage 2. But they had some difficulty there, getting kicked down to the lower bracket. They had to fight through 5 whole wars in order to advance to Stage 3, where, once again, they had a lot of difficulty early on. Blind Esports lost their first 2 matches, and when you're 0-2, the third loss means elimination. They still somehow managed to climb back on up, just right alongside Repotted Gaming, in fact, to get that 3-2 victory with 3 straight tic-tac-toe wins in Stage 3. This is a relatively new team, and that performance surprised and impressed me. I think that Blind Esports have got a lot going for them, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they've got in Stage 4. Was there any team that stood out to you as a potential favorite?
What team would I pick? I think I would go with Marcus Esports, just because I'm a huge fan of the defensive side of the game as well. For pros right now, the game sometimes looks a bit easy. I know for the majority of crashes out there, it's not. It's by far not an easy game at all. But for the pros, they are having incredible high hit rates. This means the 3-star success rate of their attacks is really high. And Marcus Esports make those defenses look so easy, defending a couple of those top teams on really low scores. So them making it really quickly in this Stage 3, I think is really impressive, holding back so many teams. So that's something I cannot wait for, looking at their defenses, watching them, and learning from them as well, Woody.
Absolutely, and we saw a global competition where Marcos went up against Strut and very nearly defeated them. So I'm really excited to see new regions and new players coming to the forefront and finding another opportunity to qualify for this truly global finals. But let's move on and talk about our favorite attack of the day. We mentioned this already when we were streaming Stage 3, but the very third war between Space Station and Vanguard had a super interesting attack by Bernal that utilized siege machines and a queen walk very effectively. Tell us a little bit about the breakdown of this matchup to begin with, and then we'll get specifically down to this attack, iTzu.
Yeah, I feel like the matchup overall was really Space Station non-stop pressuring Vanguard, and it was really hard for them to keep up because they early on had a couple of hiccups and got only those 2 stars, which on the pro scene it's already a fail, while Space Station was keep pressuring them with 3-star after 3-star, and then at some point this was the attack you were mentioning.
So this attack was very interesting. It started out a little slow with a queen charge out into the left side corner, but maybe you can tell us a bit more about why it was so effective, iTzu.
The queen charge is being one of the strongest strategies in the game if you can master it. And Bernal is just the master himself, it sometimes feels like that, because you have to control especially some key elements, which are wall breakers and the siege machine nowadays. So let's take a look at how he's setting things up and how he's making good use of that. First of all, you can see the corners on the wall are open for most of those walls, and you might be surprised about that. Well, the reason being is that with that, the troops sometimes walk not as expected. So this is some mechanic which pro and pro-based builders try to abuse to make sure that their troops are maybe not going the way which the attacker is thinking like. So let's take a look at the first thing which is really important to mention, and that's the siege machine. I know not everyone can utilize the new siege machine, the flame finger, but this siege machine is just so strong in the right hands. It can only be outranged by multi-mortars or mortars in general and expels. Those are like the only defenses which can outrange it. So as long as you're keeping the siege machine safe from those, you're looking great because already half of the base is gone after this siege machine is done. So this is the first tip for the secret strategy which he is right now using. The flinger is just keep going around this top side. And now let's take a look at the wall breaks, because wall breaks are actually working different than a lot of people are thinking. They just do not always just target walls. It's a little bit more than that. So they target closed compartments with those walls where buildings are still inside. This is exactly why this wall break is going straight into the core, because this bottom compartment, it was open. This means the wall breaker ignored it, instead it went straight to the core, and mastering those wall breaks is key, because take a look at this queen now. At the top side, we have the siege, in the middle we have the queen. Not being stopped. This queen now can access the entire base with this wall break. And this makes this strategy so strong if you can master those couple of small techniques and unique things you can look out for. And this is why Bernal is one of the best in the game with this strategy, Woody.
With all of the wars from Stage 3 now finished, what is coming ahead? Well, we had 11,000 teams competing in Stage 1, 64 competing in Stage 2, just 16 in Stage 3, and now 8 teams advance to our final Stage 4, where we have double elimination. iTzu, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, as you said, we're going back to what Stage 2 looked like with the double elimination bracket. So teams have to adapt again to that, and then the top 4 of this double elimination is going to Helsinki. But with that being said, since we know now that 8 teams which are making it to Stage 4, Woody, what would be your picks to get to the top 4 spots?
Oh, great question. Well, since we're going back to double elimination, I think that there might be a bit of a favor for teams that can plan well for a bracket format. That means that teams that have a lot of experience in live events, and particularly in tournaments where they know their opponents, can do research on them, plan their bases, and strategize for their attacks in advance, will succeed. I think that that specifically speaks well to both Space Station and Queen Walkers, the 2 teams that we picked out ahead previously in this episode. They both have a lot of experience on live stages, and in the case of the Queen Walkers, as 2-time world finalists, we can really expect them to have that preparation on point for this next stage. But then for the other 2 teams, I guess I would say that Marcos Esports is among the top contenders for me, because they're able to pull from such a large community and have really been surging forward with lots of experience in high-level events like the Snapdragon Pro Series. I would count them among the top 4 teams that I would expect to see grabbing that golden ticket in Stage 4. And then last but not least, Repotted Gaming, that squad that has been able to persevere through really difficult situations, coming in from an 0-2 record in Stage 3 to win 3 in a row. And on top of that, just being among the best in the world through that open format in Stage 1, going undefeated to the very top. Repotted Gaming scores high on my list of teams to expect to grab that golden ticket. But I think that you might have an opinion of your own. iTzu, which 4 teams do you think are going to get that golden ticket?
I think I would agree on the first 2 teams. I mean, that Space Station and Queen Walkers right now are the 2 favorites, and maybe having the rank 2 and rank 1 spot is, I think, kind of safe to say, at least based on the stats which they have shown so far, based on the performance they have shown so far. So I would totally agree on that, but I have the 2 last teams different. I would go first with Blind Esports. One reason being is they were really clutch in the last couple of matches. Them as well, getting the nice reverse sweep kind of after dropping really early into the lower bracket. And another reason why I would pick them is they have the experience. So they have 2 to 3 players on their roster being the same players who played already last year in the Clash of Clans World Finals, in the finals event. And this is a lot of experience. Knowing how to handle the pressure and everything, I think is going to be a really important thing in this last stage. And then I think as well Inquisition. I think Inquisition did really amazing. Only one mess up kind of when it comes down to their offensive power, which they had in this 3rd stage. So I feel like they are really a powerhouse as well, or you can count on. And we're looking forward to see them performing. Maybe if it's going better or maybe not as good, we will see for sure. But that would be my top 4 teams making it then to the Clash of Clans World Finals live in Helsinki. But with that said, Woody, tell us a bit more about this Clash of Clans World Championship final.
Of course, and I gotta say, that's high praise coming from such an accomplished player as you, that those 4 teams have got your favor. But the World Finals are going to be September 23rd through 25 in Helsinki, Finland. We've got $1 million prize pool for all 4 stages and the World Finals this year, but the bulk of that prize goes out at Helsinki. You can watch the Clash of Clans teams compete in the World Finals right alongside the Clash Royale squads in Clash Fest, a month-long celebration of all the greatest esports accomplishments from these players. We're going to have this event at the Helsinki Exhibition and Convention Center. We hope that everyone here will tune in, and maybe a lucky few will even be able to join us live for all the festivities. The tickets are on sale now, and we hope that you will join us there. So far today we've been talking about the stages of the qualifiers for World Championship, but 4 teams have already qualified, in fact, earning their golden tickets by becoming the champions of large community events. One of them, the third to qualify, was Tribe Gaming. This is a very experienced team coming from an organization with multiple World's Finals appearances before, and their roster includes Kronos, Nebrax, Fluxy, Rikirez, and Excosist. Tribe Gaming earned their golden ticket from the Queso Cup Golden Edition 2. Can you tell us a little bit about this lineup and the history of the organization, iTzu?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I will start with the players, and we most of the time try to highlight the star player in this stage of this episode. But I feel like it's really hard to pick for Tribe Gaming a star player, because they in themselves have all achieved so crazy things already. Just as an example, for Excosist, he was one of the, I think even the highest hit rate player in the last year. I mean, that's what some other star players are dreaming of, right? But if you would just keep going down the list, for example, Rikirez is having one of the highest hit rate in a lot of different Lalo strategies. So for example, all of those stats are tracked by Chase the Ace. Huge shout out to him, obviously. And with that, you can see how good or maybe bad some pros are doing. And as I said, Rikirez is just one of the Lalo gods out there. Incredible skill with that strategy. And if you would keep going with, for example, Kronos, who last year in the Clash of Clans World Finals had an incredible run. Nearly to the end, he was still perfect with his hit rate. And you can keep going with that. You can just keep going with their incredible expertise overall. So I feel like it's really hard to pick a pro or like a star player for this team. So that's why I would just say they're really adding up to each other really well and working really well as a team. But overall, I think just the priority for them is really heavily on Lalo. They're all playing different variations of that. But I think we should go as well to the next point, which is Rivalry. What are the other teams looking like? Because as you have said, Woody, Tribe Gaming is already around for quite some time. So what are really exciting matchups you're looking for?
You've tossed up a softball question for me there, because easily the most interesting, hardest fought, and maybe even the longest rivalry in the Clash of Clans competitive scene is between Tribe Gaming and none other than Strut. Strut includes players that were on the World Champion lineup from 2020, so there were high hopes that they would perform well at last year's World Finals too. But it was several of the players on this year's Tribe Gaming lineup that ultimately defeated Strut quite early on in that double elimination bracket. Strut really sought out the revenge this year and had some mixed success in finding it. First off, Tribe Gaming got the victory over them in the Snapdragon Pro Series round robin, and then defeated them again in a very tightly contested perfect v perfect war, 15-15, in the Queso Cup Golden Edition 2. And it was ultimately time that got Tribe the victory there so they could score their golden ticket. But when these two teams were reunited on a live stage at the Snapdragon Pro Series Finals, it was actually Strut that got the win that time. This rivalry spans years, and between these two teams, I can't say which one is better. We'll just have to find out at World Finals. Hope to see some great action between the two of them there. Well, that's it for today's show. Thank you very much for tuning in. And iTzu, thank you for joining me.
Woody, it was my pleasure. And if you guys do not want to miss any more esports action, make sure to follow those social media links down below and stay up to date for anything what is about to happen.
And if you enjoyed today's episode, bring a hog hammer down on that like button and leave a comment in the section below. And don't forget to buy your tickets for Clash Fest, taking place in Helsinki, Finland, September 23 to 25. Until then, I'm Woody.
I'm iTzu.
Clash on!